All right. So you've been in this indie media space for a pretty long time. And we've seen it evolve a lot over time, first as viewers and now as participants. Trump's victory has shattered a lot of brains, and a lot of people are trying to figure out how to position themselves in light of this, seemingly including your old boss. So this made the rounds recently. I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election, even though I was so against the guy who won. I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. It's not just that the establishment candidate lost, it's that their media is mortally wounded. The source of their strength was not insipid politicians like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden. The source of their strength was their propaganda machine, the mainstream media. Now, online media is strong enough that their oppressive monopoly on the American mind has been broken. Now we're in the jungle. They hate that. I love it. This uncontrolled marketplace of ideas is where I'm home. I'd rather be in the populist woods than an establishment prison. Now, coming from a guy who, speaking of Russiagate, has been accusing people like you, like Glenn, like Matt Taibbi, like Aaron Mate of all being Putin puppets and Trump apologists. A lot of people found this kind of hypocritical and an effort at marketing to MAGA rather than sincerely felt. What are your thoughts?
Well, in fairness to him, I don't know that he ever personally accused me of being a Putin puppet. I don't think he ever went that far. And to his credit, he, during the brief time when I did work at the Young Turks, he gave me basically unfettered ability to do reporting and commentary that was critical of Russiagate. And we even did like a whole debate about it on the main show, which went kind of viral. And, I think, in hindsight, I was kind of vindicated on that more than he was. And he was like, I think he still might believe that there was some secret bombshell piece of information, like tying Trump to some like Russian, I don't know, business interest or something that, just Robert Mueller missed all this time. But like, I don't dislike him on a personal level, but the bloviation never has to make sense. Like if you compare like from now to 6 months ago, it just like, it could be whatever. And then he'll just keep barreling ahead, and like there never has to be any like consistent through line for like what he's saying, because I did another debate style thing with him over the summer about Trump and like what he fears about a second Trump term and quote unquote fascism or destroying democracy, and he was all on board with the destroying democracy thesis.
Right.
So now he's saying he's optimistic in light of the destruction of democracy because the quote establishment has been defeated. He could have made that point 6 months ago, and he chose not to. So I don't know what exactly to make of it. I think it's silly to. So I also, I mean, maybe I should write something else calling for the retirement of the term establishment, because it's too vague to have much coherent meaning.
Right.
Which establishment interest does Trump pose a threat to? I think the one example that might be at least moderately tenable at this point could be that he wants to do some bureaucratic reorganization, like within the FBI, maybe impose some reforms to limit their powers in certain respects, as we discussed earlier. But like in the main, Wall Street is over the moon about Trump. The military-industrial complex. Read their
market has been off the hook since the election.
Yeah, I mean the defense contractors are not mournful about the defeat of Trump. If anything, it's the total opposite. Pro-Israel donors are not despondent about Trump. So I just don't know what establishment interests are supposedly undermined by this election result.
Joe and Mika are upset.
Well, that's the thing. I think what it represents is the sort of death of resistance liberalism, which is a positive development in my opinion.
Well, that's just so exhausted and irrelevant now. But like to then say, I mean, believe me, I fought day in and day out with resistance liberals for a long time, and now that they're kind of like no longer an active force or irrelevant, I think that's probably a decent thing. Although I do have to say that I have certain worries about this or certain apprehensions about the second Trump term that I didn't have about the first.
Exactly.
Same.
I think that's a great point.
Including on the realm of foreign policy.
Yeah.
Where like it might be like to have a non-existent any kind of opposition movement because they're so deflated and so beleaguered and like they just want to kind of tune in and drop out, or they just want to like drop out of society, like Timothy Leary style or something, because they're so flustered by events and they can't claim that Trump like was not a legitimate president this time because he won by every metric, right?
Well, this is the irony.
I do worry how that could translate to Trump on the international stage, taking some brash action, whether it relates to China, Syria. Look at what's going on now. I mean, Trump said that in 2020 that he had wanted to assassinate Assad, but apparently was talked out of it by the adult in the room, James Mattis. Something to do with Iran. I mean, Trump claims that Trump had threatened to blow Iran to quote smithereens over the course of this campaign.
Right.
And the FBI, and he's promoted this idea that the Iranian government's been conspiring to assassinate him and also hacked his campaign. So you have guys like John Ratcliffe, who Trump just put in as the CIA director, who's saying that Iran has already committed acts of war against the United States. And he called for some reprisal against Iran, including by joint strikes with Israel. I think Ukraine is not like the idea that that's just going to like settle out. I think is kind of wishful thinking. It might happen. It might not. I mean, Trump has talked about even invading, like attacking Mexico potentially. Obviously, Marco Rubio would love nothing more than regime change in Cuba, right? Potentially Venezuela.
Yep.
So there's a lot of potentially dicey situations here that. Probably wouldn't have engendered much resistance to liberal protest anyway, because they didn't care about much foreign policy stuff. They just wanted to cry about norms.
Of course,
and,
this is what's so
cite
ironic
David
about
Frum passages and stuff.
This is what's so ironic about Cenk is that I agree with you 100%. The world's a much more dangerous place now than it was in 2017 when Trump took over. So when Trump won the first time, Cenk went all in on the opposition to Trump, basically went all in on resistance liberalism, which was really funny to people like us because the opposition to Trump was just making up scary stories about Vladimir Putin. And at that point, Cenk was all in to do that. But now that the world is a much more dangerous place, Trump inherits a genocide on day one. He inherits World War III on day one. On top of all the concerns you just laid out, it seems like now would be the time to not acquiesce to MAGA, but with resistance liberalism sort of out of the way, now you could have an actual meaningful resistance to Trump, and he seems shy about that at the complete wrong time. The time to abandon resistance liberalism was 8 years ago.
Which reinforces the impression, and you would probably know better than we do, just watching the decisions at TYT, which was really the father of and mother of shows like ours, in all honesty. We've just seen them become more and more of a business that pivots with where they think the audience is. That's what it looks like to me.
I don't know. I'm not sure that they're going to get a giant MAGA audience. Just because it's so baked in that they're a liberal Democratic show, right, or left-wing show, or something.
There is nothing that sells better than I left the left to that audience.
That's true. I don't know if he'll go as far as to do that, but
he'll go eat turkey legs at the Iowa State Fair.
And that's such a tedious and trite little routine that people do. Oh, I didn't leave the left left me. Yeah. Wow, that's so bold and innovative. You're going back to the Ronald Reagan, and it's not like anything novel or interesting, I don't think, for the most part. Especially if it just reeks of cynicism and opportunism. If you have a genuine ideological evolution in your thinking, okay, I mean, at least I'm open to hearing about it. But if it's just a marketing shtick, I really am not that interested. I guess the question I would ask Cenk is: you say that the establishment has been defeated. Did you see any of your reactions to when Trump named his Treasury Department Secretary of the Treasury nominee, Scott Bessent? It was all about in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNBC. It was all about how the Wall Street and the international financiers were breathing a huge sigh of relief. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So, explain to me where the establishment has been defeated here exactly? It doesn't make any sense.
Please clap.